Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
All right, welcome back to Launch Code Podcast. That is like probably the worst intro.
It is pretty bad.
Hey, welcome back to the Launch Code Podcast with Brian Stevens, 86.4.
That's okay. We get straight to the content. You know,
we're going to get straight into it. We don't have any sponsors for this fucking thing, so we just go straight in. That's what we do. Okay, so it's been a year, Matt.
Been a year.
It's been a year. You got to kind of tell us what you did. Well, first of all, who are you?
I'm Matt Graham from Graham Combat.
There we go. Matt Graham's
We're the
back
sponsor today.
Ooh, I like that. You can be the sponsor.
Unless
like
it's
that.
fiduciary responsibility. That
No.
we're just a content sponsor.
All you owe us is a good attitude. That's all we want.
So up next then is who?
So last year we sat down with you. We talked about our history together, kind of your training evolution, what you're doing. We want to update, so we want to see like what you've been doing for the last year.
A year in the life of Graham Combat.
Yeah. So we got a lot of messages actually because they loved your conversation. And I do want to put this out, which is where can they find you? I want to do this a couple times throughout this. So
GrahamCombat.com.
There you go.
That's where we're at.
And do you answer emails
I
personally?
do.
You do.
I do.
Okay.
Not all of them. I pick one.
Right.
Thousands come in,
Right.
and I just benevolently, I will like pick
Right.
one out, and I'll be like, today, Doug in Ephrata gets his answer,
Gets
and
the
I will
reply.
write it out there. Yeah, no, we do. We typically answer them.
Okay, and you're up in Seattle still, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Seattle area.
Seattle
I'll just call it
area.
Seattle area. All right, so tell us what you've been up to for the last year.
We had a good year. It's a year in this industry, so it's obviously the training industry or the gun industry or the world industry that we're in for us, and so has its ups and downs. We have some innovations that we've brought to market and are working at bringing to market, some sight systems. So our patent actually dropped on that on Friday. So a new pistol sighting system that brings the rear sight closer to the front sight. Focal banding. It's like science.
Science
so,
and
Science and stuff.
So we took a gun,
Okay.
dipped it in science, and now,
And then that's
now
what
we
you
use
have
it.
now.
Yeah.
And now we use it.
Yeah, now we use it.
It sounds like science might have just. It sounds like you might have just like shit science all over.
Kinda. It was.
Is that-
It was like we like if science, like if we're doing a intelligence test and we talk about like the word association piece. So if science is to poo as monkeys are to process, then we put the gun in the monkey cage and they just threw poo at it.
It's a beautiful
But
analogy.
I was the monkey.
I was the monkey.
and the pooer. So
Last year, when we talked earlier, just to give people some context, Matt and I've known each other for several years. I've taken, I've taken some instruction from you. We could classify it as that. And he's one of the best instructors that I've had the privilege of. I don't know what you'd call it, working under, but that sounds a little bit weird.
Little weird.
Especially,
in our-
precursor of
yeah.
the poo thing. But
Yeah.
and our
But-
environment,
yeah.
I really love the way that you articulate things. I like the way that you architect and design your instruction. I like the way that you put your information out because you apply a different form of context and a different relationship to the information. I think there are a lot of instructors out there, and we talked a little bit about it last year, where they regurgitate information. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of like just general regurgitation in the industry, and they don't actually understand the information 3 layers deep. They just understand how to regurgitate information. Now, that's kind of the military method in a lot of instruction is that you learn it from somebody, and then you tell somebody else exactly what you just heard. You're the conduit you don't actually understand the information. A lot of the instructors out there don't actually understand it.
Well, I think it's the learning methodology that we've had our entire life, right? We got that way with
Right.
Mr. Schwartz's woodshop class in 8th grade.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is how you use a planer. And,
Exactly. But
and-
why?
Exactly. And so it's in the same with math class and everything else. We sit in front of someone who tells us something, and then even right now as adults, you can look back on a teacher that you've had in your life when you reference something, math, science, or history, and you're like, oh yeah, Mr. Wallenberg taught me that.
Right.
And it's that regurgitation of that piece. And one of the issues in the training world today is, do you just get regurgitation with no depth of knowledge, right? Because it's the depth of knowledge and experience that brings the wisdom to that piece,
Right.
as opposed to just reading the book or reciting the drill card.
Right.
And it's a difficult piece. Ellen, my business partner, and I had gone. We still go to training. We go out to places to seek new things. Maybe there's a bigger, faster, better way.
Right.
And it becomes difficult when that's what you see, is someone's just repeating. Like, I don't know the depth of history of this, and I don't know the next step where it goes if it's not written. Like, if only the
Right.
front part of the card is printed, where's the back card? You know,
Right.
then you're done. So it's difficult.
Well, and about how many courses now do you think that you have taught in your lifetime?
So are we just going to combine all of the
Yeah.
work worlds that you've known me in?
Just combine them all.
It's 12 students a day for 48 weeks a year
Right.
for, in our life together, a dozen years.
Yeah.
So just that is a few. I can't do the quick math on that. I could throw the science boo,
Right.
But the quick math
With the
is,
quick math,
yeah. I know that the alligator eats the bigger number when we're done. Like that's
About where I'm at with math too, so I can't really help you there.
And
Matt.
then if there's an alligator there, why am I worried about the math? So
Right. That's true. You should
Yeah.
be worried about the alligator.
maybe,
Yeah.
Or
So-
what kind of shoes am I going to make? But
Needless to say, you've seen a lot of students throughout the course of your career, and you
every day.
see a different student, and you've obviously had to change the way that you teach in order to get information through, because there's an acceptable criteria that your students have to actually retain the information and then utilize it in order to pass, right? So one of the things that I like to ask guys about this is just in the context of the information, are you constantly trying to dig up more information on the craft, I should call it, like whether it's gun craft or tactics, because they're very definitively different? Are you constantly researching and kind of diving down the rabbit hole in that?
Well, you have to be in it. If
Right.
it's not a world that you're living in, then it's not something that you're going to be able to translate. You can translate the information, but you can't translate the knowledge.
Right.
So we can talk about the room we're in right now and look at it tactically, but until we're here living in it, how that translates to that venue or that environment is entirely different. So you brought up a bunch of things there in that question, and one of the biggest ones goes to how do people learn drives how people teach. And a lot of what we find in instruction doesn't do that. It's just, this is written on the card, so I read the card.
Right.
But Matt may not learn that way, and Evan may not learn that way. So teaching is a continuous, and you and I have this experience together, where it's a continuous feedback loop.
Right.
Where you've probably experienced with me teaching a class that it's a constant give and take. It's just like this interview. If I'm talking with you and you're responding to me, then I need to base my next move or my next learning for you off of what you said, not off of what I wrote on the card in the car.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not relevant. So in learning, especially if we go back to firearms and tactics that are directly applicable. I was talking with one of the oldest school firearms instructor around in our industry is probably Ken Hackathorn. He's been around forever. So
Legend, by the way. Yeah, legend.
Absolutely, right? And for some reason, the legend likes me. So,
wow.
yeah.
That's impressive.
Who knew?
Yeah.
So, but I don't turn it away. So anytime he wants to talk, I'll talk
Right.
with him. There's a mantle, right, that is passed, or a torch, or there's a standard that is made, an honor within the profession that you learn from those that have gone before. So we were just talking, and the analogy I used is a blanket. We've all seen a blanket with fringe on it, right? But what part of that blanket is going to keep you alive overnight if it's cold? The fringe or the center of the blanket? And it's the center of the blanket. And a lot of times what people focus on is the fringe.
Right.
And the fringe isn't anything. You can cut the fringe away and be just fine. And that's in teaching and in learning and going to classes and in giving classes. That's the drive. It's not, hey, look at the pretty blanket I made. It's, hey, man, this is how that blanket's going to get you through tomorrow.
Right.
And don't focus on the fringe aspect of it. Focus on what the core of it is. So it's difficult if you don't know the material. And in knowing the material, you have to practice it. You have to live it. It can't be.
But would you say that's kind of the hard part about teaching, right? Because if you focus on core competencies, sometimes those processes become very mundane. Whereas in teaching, and quite often students don't really want to participate necessarily in making themselves better. They want to participate in the flash and the sexy aspect of whatever you're teaching. But how do you get a student to be like, okay, the blanket keeps you warm. We're not worrying about this, because normally the student would be like, oh, but I want to learn how to make the fringe and make it look sexy.
Right. I think part of that goes to what you just said was the mundane. It makes it the mundane. The mundane for who, Matt? Right? So what I always do is bring it back to the reason you're here, whether it's in the professional association that we've had or in the Graham Combat you're coming to a class. You came here for a reason. And so let's focus on what that reason is. It's not mundane if it's core to saving your life. So if you're here and you recognize what that is, and there's times where I'll just have to talk to students. And because I'm very much collaborative in teaching. It's me and you. We're going back and forth and doing this process. And I'll say, because you can spot them, hey, man, are you here just to, like you're just here to run that plate carrier and show your abs when you're swapping shirts at chow time and all that kind of stuff? I get it.
Yeah.
Or what are you doing here? And I think the reason that we have been so good and Ellen has been able to cultivate our student base is because we get a different person. We get a more intellectual student that recognizes the downside to what you're doing. So it could be mundane when the downside is nothing, right? There's no downside to what's going on here. But when you approach it, look at business. When you approach it with the downside of, if this doesn't go, it's catastrophic.
Yeah, the consequences.
Then how mundane is it? How
Yeah,
much
I
do you
totally
bring
agree
to
in
it?
that. I mean, I feel like I've had that perspective throughout training courses I've been in, because I realize the real application of it and the consequences associated with a failure. But I feel like in the current industry, a lot more people are focused on things that are not life-saving. It's more of, the social media world that we live in. Can I show off, a boot rack on my pistol, rather than worrying about how to put a bullet on a target?
Yeah, and we're pretty good. I'm pretty good at being fairly honest with how things are going, and we don't have time. You came here to this class for these 1 day, 3 day, 5 days, 2 weeks, however long it is, to get what I have, and we don't have time. So typically I'll just call that out quickly. And like I said, over the years that we've integrated the way we believe in the way we present the information, we've cultivated a type of student that comes to us. And so we still get them. I won't call them out by names. But
Yeah.
But that's awesome. You can attract a higher level of talent and student to kind of really, participate in what you're teaching.
Well, and what's interesting too is it's not, and you know this from in the industry, it's not typically a higher level of talent. It's a higher level of engagement. It's
True.
an individual who has said, hey, I may have zero talent, but I recognize that what you're speaking is truth, and what I need is the center of the blanket.
Right.
And so where are we? And being able to recognize that and cultivate that. It's extremely difficult to do from a teaching side. It's very hard to have 15 different people in front of you and teach and speak to them individually.
Right.
But just like the analogy I used earlier, the example of our previous teachers in life, we all know one that spoke to us or taught us in a way that to this day we still remember. And that is what I see as my obligation to that class. You came here, I have a set of keys, and as I move through each one of these keys, I'm going to find the one that unlocks you and works with you, and then we're going to drive on from there. So it's just finding that finesse to be able to manifest that. It's difficult, but I value it. I think it translates to people that, you've been there. I think it translates.
Well, and who's coming to a Graham Combat course right now?
Everybody.
Everybody, right? Yeah, all walks of life.
Yeah,
so, and the reason I asked that is I wanted to ask the second question, which is, we've been hit up a lot by guys that are like, man, I don't even know where to begin, and maybe they got a few years of military service, but they're looking for some help, some outside training. I don't even know where to begin. So, I think that was some of the questions we got after your last episode. It was like, okay, but he lives in Seattle, man. I'm in Iowa. I'm working part time and going to school. Like, I'm not going to be able to fly out there and take a course. So, where does a guy start? Where do you start your knowledge? Do you start on YouTube? Is that where you start? Where do you start, man?
Instructor Zero. Sorry.
Yeah, it's what is your end goal, and like in any learning, where do you start knowledge? If I don't have access to what everyone else has, if I don't have the resources to be able to go to a physical school to be able to do that, then yeah, maybe it's the internet, maybe it's the library. We're talking about just general knowledge, but there's a lot of good information out there. I think the hard part now is so many people have access to that internet that every single one of them, it puts out what they believe. And so it's very difficult. What I see for students as difficult is, how can I filter out the noise and find a message?
That's the question, which is how do
go to the people that are speaking the message?
Right.
I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. There are others out there, and I think it's easy to discern who's actually speaking the message. And yeah, it's a hardship. One of the things that I used to talk about in training is I've worked at many levels of organizations. I've worked at police departments that have 7 guys, and I worked at the Air Marshal program that just gives you ammo. I've worked with small groups of people with no resources, and then I've worked within DOD that literally there's a room that prints money. Right. And they're like, wow, that's a neat room. Like, how could I just be in this room?
Right.
And can I have a backpack?
Can I have a backpack, please?
A big backpack. I think your backpack should be scaled to the size of you, and I'm a big guy, so I
don't think they make backpacks that big. What are you, like 6'5"?
But I mean, if I'm in a money room,
right,
I just think it's unrealistic to have like a little bag. So, in presenting all of that information and in bringing all of those things out there, we offer a scholarship.
Oh, really?
To law enforcement and military, and we offered it for I think 2 years. And nobody applied.
Are you serious?
So in the entire country, in giving out a free scholarship to come train to mitigate all of those things that you're talking about, those barriers for someone to get to the message, nobody would fill out the form, write the essay,
right,
and have a letter from their supervisor for 2 years.
Wow.
So after that time, we thought, maybe it's not working.
Right.
So we stopped it. And then now we've, over the past 2 years now, had students come. We just finished a course and had a police officer from the Northeast come down and came through a class. And
On a scholarship program?
yeah, absolutely.
That's phenomenal.
It's a...
Are you hoping he kind of goes back to his department, it spreads that knowledge as well, and gets the other guys trained up a little bit?
Well, you're speaking the message again. So
Right.
that's the piece. If he's come and heard the message and recognized that it is applicable and is different, it's not noise, right? It's totally legitimate information. Then yeah, he's going to go back and be able to share that. So the resources argument, you know, it's interesting because people find ways to not do something,
Right.
and it's just as easy to find a way to do it. Right? If there's
Oh, I totally believe there's two types of people in the world. There's people that find excuses to do things like properly at all costs, and there's people that find excuses to not do things. I mean, someone like Evan as a business partner is just that way. I mean, if the guy's terrible, he'll find it like sick. He'll find an excuse to make himself go to work. Whereas most other people will find the most moderate, mild excuse to not go to work. So it's a bizarre psychology with some people.
Yeah, and it's where is what means more to me? Where am I going to focus my time, my resources? So maybe I am working a part-time job. Maybe I am going to school. Maybe it is difficult to come up with a bunch of rounds in the travel from, you know, the Midwest out to a class. I understand all of those things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would always say is I stopped keeping track of it at 62. As a guy who has gone through this world professionally in my professional life, I have gone to 62 courses that I paid for out of my own pocket
Right.
to develop me to the point that I am. I stopped the number at 62 because then the G started paying for more of them.
Right.
But yeah, so I say back to that same person, yeah, it's tough, man. I paid for 62 of them.
Right.
So you just have to decide where that resource needs to go. And again, what's the downside? Is $400 in tuition worth my life? Yeah, well then maybe I'll,
Right.
you know, cut back on the affliction shirts.
Hey, I wear those all the time.
I wasn't
I'm
looking at you
kidding.
when I
I'm
said
kidding.
it. I wasn't looking at you when I said it.
No,
I can see it under his jacket.
well, and we've talked about this a few times, I think, in the past, where I always notice trends. I don't notice trends right now necessarily in the shooting industry and I would not classify you in the shooting training. Actually, that's where I would classify you. I'd say you're in the tactical, more of the tactical with the applicable tool. Like it's a survival tool in survival
Right.
situations. So, like, I think you have very distinctly different things that people can teach. And there are a lot of marksmanship instructors out there, and there are tactics instructors. And like, I think that's really important for people to distinguish between. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, like shooting 25 bulls, like, hey man, 25-yard bull, like, go for it. That's really good. But putting somebody into a situation where you can apply a little bit of heat and a little bit of stress, and making them shoot targets in a scenario where they could find themselves in, or worse of a scenario than they would normally find themselves in. Like, you're teaching a survival skill. So there's the tool, and then the skill or the application of said tool in the environment. So, like, one of the things, and I'm really kind of leading this in the sense of, like, what are you seeing in the industry that you like the trends, I guess, in the last year? What are you seeing that you don't like?
A little of both. My answer touches both of those. What I like is the saturation of information about people, about individuals, about classes, about training, has to be transparent now. So those that can't do it have no place to hide.
Right.
And I like that. Now, it's terrifying,
Right.
because every single person is digging into every single piece, but maybe some of that noise, that white noise that's keeping the message from getting out there, has now been mitigated a little bit.
Right.
It's really difficult to, from a business standpoint, it's difficult to differentiate yourself from a competitor when 350 million people have access to the same platform of information.
Right.
And consistently push out the same information, whether it's good or bad. So you start to see trending and or focus going to places where it's not there. It's like a false alarm, right? It's like the nuclear weapon launched at Hawaii a couple of weeks ago. Like, it doesn't exist. But hey, guess what? It's, people thought it did. So I like that. I like that there's a big equalizer out there now, so people can say, nope, I've actually been to an individual that you've never heard of, and he's phenomenal. Or I've been to a person that you hear of all the time, and you know what? I was unimpressed with it, or I didn't learn from it.
Right.
So I like that, and I don't like that. It's just kind of the world we're in. I think with our normal life of boutique answers and getting back to handcrafted home style gear and goods, we're seeing that trend in the training world as well. Give me someone that is legitimate, has legitimate information to translate into what I need, whether that's a fight or personal security or bigger picture, and I'll buy it and I'll be with it. And you know this, I'll have brand loyalty forever because it's a genuine piece. So that I think is out there now, and I like it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you said you've gone to 62 plus courses, and I think a lot of people, definitely within like the shooting industry or tactics industry, they get locked into they almost idolize a specific instructor, and then they think that they're supposed to be rooting for a team almost. So it's like, hey, if I watch this guy, he's my favorite instructor, I can't go to another instructor. And I think people need to smash that into bits and just like, shovel it out the front door, because gosh, I don't know how many different instructors I've seen and or like been taught by, like watched them teach and picked up little things where I'm like, man, I would have gone to 2 days of training just to see that 5-minute block of instruction. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think that it limits people's perspective and their ability to pick up information. I'm dumb as fuck, man. I have to hear information like 3 or 4 times most of the time in order to and it has to be applied specifically in a form where I'm like, oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. So I've got to hear it from sometimes 3 different people, 3 different ways in order for something to sink in and go, got it. I completely get this now.
Well, part of that is in a learning methodology is bridging. So the concept of bridging of I'm here now and I want to get there, and there's a piece of information or skill or knowledge that will get me from point A to point B. And in part of having a diverse learning environment, think back to, again, we'll go back to Mr. Schwartz in middle school.
Right.
You had different periods throughout the day of different stuff. But when you are in math class, you're still learning English.
Right.
And when you're in English class, you're still learning math. And when you're in history, you're tying a little bit of it together.
Right.
Because is 100 years war really 100 years? You got to figure that out. And then it's also English. So bridging back and forth between the two, which if you can couple a bridge of learning with a depth of knowledge, then you're gaining from that wisdom from someone else. So in a class, me as the teacher is to find the bridge for Evan to walk across and to get to. So it's a guided discovery learning model, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah,
I'm just the guy in the boat taking you from one side of the river to the other. And at some point, it's going to catch. And it may not be in my class.
Right.
It may be in the next class you take. But if you're only drinking from one cup, right? Yeah. We have many flavors of coffee.
Right.
We want to drink from a bunch of cups. So,
and it's weird. When I would see a new group of students, the class would almost take on a different personality
absolutely.
Too. And so you'd have individual personalities, and you'd have to reach or bridge your information. But then you'd also have a class, and you're like, these guys collectively are learning differently than the previous class. They take on almost like a group psychology to a certain degree, where I would have to change the information I was putting out for the group, so any group that came through, and then the individuals to try to see, okay, where is this person at? How do I reach them on this specific thing? And I remember working with a Brit. God, I'll never forget this. I was working with a Brit a few years ago, and he could not kind of bridge the gap on being able to stabilize his wrist. So his split times were shit, like absolute, like just like half-second splits. They're horrible, and and I'm trying to explain to him, like, okay, I need you to not tighten your. You don't need to tighten your grip. I need you to stabilize your wrist. That's your issue. And he kept tightening, like grabbing onto the pistol. I'm like, dude, you're going to choke that thing to death. No, I need you to tighten your wrist. So what I ended up doing is I started looking for an app. I found Coach's Eye because of that. And I think I was telling you, like we talked about that before. And then as soon as I popped in the slow-mo camera, put it into Coach's Eye, it just absolutely clicked with him. But then I could use that tool. So he was teaching me at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
So then because I had to solve that problem and I could not convey this piece of information, I need you to tighten your wrist, not your hand. Like I don't need this grip further. I don't need you to milk this thing, man. I need you to just this. And it was interesting because I ended up using this tool for another year after that. So I could draw angles, and it solved a ton of problems for me. So at the same time, because you're getting so many reps in as an instructor, and if you're an active problem solver doing the same thing, people don't understand that when they go to an instructor that has so many reps with so many different students, they have, just statistically, they're going to have more tools in their bag in order to reach them more effectively.
Well, you see more things, too. It's the numbers. They're bound to come up, right? So that's the idea behind that rep piece, and it's what you had to do, though, which is the big differentiation, which I think needs to be made in this industry, is what you had to do was have a vested interest in the student. If you hadn't done that, which you've also seen happen, we've all lived a life where someone just was like, yeah, man, not everybody gets it, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
It's easy.
Yeah. So
it's called indige good enough.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where when you had that interest, you sought for yourself, what can I do to translate this information better? Which is not only the idea that we had just talked about of a student seeking out different learning, but a teacher seeking out different ways to teach. And I think that goes to the professionalism of the craft.
Right.
If you're an actual professional of your craft, then you're always a student, right? Like I continue to go to classes. I continue to find different things, tons of different things, to be able to kind of refine myself, and then which one of those things that I'm doing translates to now what I teach Monday to Friday. And it may come from somewhere totally different. It may come from filming somebody on the phone. It may come from drawing. It may come from another piece where I say, okay, Matt, show me, pick up a pencil and draw for me what you see in your sight picture.
Right.
And then when drawn, say, now draw it the size you see it relative to your target. And what you'll often see when you do that is people aren't looking at the proper places. Otherwise, it would be drawn perspectively differently. And you're able to say, yeah, this is what we need you to change. Oh, yeah, man, I never knew that. Yep. Or do what you're doing, Britt, and teach it to him.
Right.
Turn to the guy next to you and tell him exactly the same thing. Because when you repeat the information, do you understand it? And you find whether it works.
And it's funny because teaching through an interpreter was one of the most challenging things that
Has
I
to be
could
clean.
ever do.
Right? Like
And you have to distill the information. There's no excess pontification.
Yeah.
You have to
Words
get
mean
everything.
things.
Yes, words mean things. And you have to drill it down to the KISS principle of information. You have to be able to get through like on the mark. So just like shooting in the repetition piece, it's like the information has to be drilled down to the point of like, this is so simple.
See, but don't we want that?
Yes.
And that's the thing.
That's what it was like.
So interesting because we'll talk about that from a teaching side, And it's great. But then also when I'm fighting, what do I need?
Right.
I need clean, right? I need clear. I need simple angles. I need, if I can't shoot something directly, then I need to shoot it indirectly. And it's one of those things where it's so simple, yet becomes, like we're talking about in the industry, the fringe. It becomes about all these other things, right? Like, oh, you don't have that new piece of kit? And you're like, well, no, because that new piece of kit doesn't do anything
Right.
to manufacture like this fight that I'm in, right? And make it cleaner, faster, more efficient. So yeah, I look for that in everything of from human movement to interaction to dynamics to physiological and visual perception. The fast sight that we developed and are bringing to market, the pistol sights, the rear sight is pushed all the way forward towards the front sight. It's in the same focal band, so your eye visually perceives the sights together in focus. So now when I teach you to shoot, I'm not saying, hey, the front one's going to be in focus,
Right.
but the rear's blurry.
gonna
Don't
be
worry
blurry.
about the rear's blurry, man.
Don't worry about that one.
Like, yeah, like those are just two things in the back that, it's only 50% of the equation, but whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
Are you guys going into production on that kind of stuff?
yeah, we're doing some things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'd be super interested to take that to the range and shoot it.
It's good times. What it does is so we worked on the project for 2 years prior to bringing it. It was a project that started within my DoD life, so it's valid. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like in this world of like, yeah, man, you're wearing a different color shirt and like off with that guy's head.
Right.
So it's the
Right.
scarlet letter of tactics world.
Right.
We know it's true before we even brought it out. So, yeah, it's focal banding and it's pretty dynamic. It minimizes the process that you implement in shooting by 25%. So my eye
Wow.
to my rear sight to my front sight to my threat now becomes my eye to my sights to my threat.
Right.
It is the mechanical equivalent of a heads-up display. It's the French term for it is badass, is what it is. It's badass. Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah. Which is
That's
totally different
cool.
than bidet.
Is that going to be on Graham Combat or is it going to be?
We
through
have a
somebody
video
else?
out on it now.
Oh, you do?
On
Okay.
the science behind it.
Right.
Ellen, my business partner, is a doctor, and so science.
Science.
Yeah,
use
there you go,
science.
right?
Do you have a station where I can just dip things in science, as you
We
were
do.
saying?
We do.
Okay.
It's going to look a lot like you're getting poo thrown at you.
Right.
Okay.
You got to believe it's science. Just bridge to science.
Besides, like professional life, like what are you training for? Like besides the fact, like I know you're an instructor, but what are your
You mean like
perceived threats?
bagpiping? Like, do I spend my time
No, I mean,
learning the
what are your
bagpipes?
perceived threats? Like, you're a family man. I mean, the normal person when they need to ask themselves some questions. I think in realities of life, obviously, and just kind of like looking at statistical probability of bumping into things that go bad. What do you see the average citizen having to prepare themselves for?
The biggest piece is a willingness to fight. I think that's the thing is people go to classes, people buy all the gear, and then they don't have a willingness to step up and inflict violence on something. And that is, then what are we doing? Right?
Right.
Then you're just here for the show. Like we talked about, you're just here for the fringe. You're just here to have fun. You're going to
Got
run.
it.
And that's totally fine.
Right.
Right? Like I've never played a round of golf. I haven't. I get it. It's a thing. It's like a real sport. It's out there, but me going out and playing 18 holes, okay, that's fine. Like we could go do that tomorrow. But recognizing that doesn't make me a professional golfer.
Right.
And so if I'm going to be a professional golfer, then I better be dedicated to what's going on. So if I'm going to take on the responsibility of me defending my family, well, then I better recognize that first piece, which is when it comes time to defend them, right? You are more effective in saving a life, the more effective you are at taking a life. But if you're not willing to stand in the gap and fight, right? Let's go ball it out and see what happens. Then what are you doing?
Do you think you can teach people to participate in violence voluntarily? Because I think that a lot of that is an innate
I think it goes to bridging. So you're right. I think it goes to bridging. What you have to do is, and we get people in our classes that are 20-year soft guys and a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
And how do you teach them the same information? Number one, the information, like you said before, Evan, is very simple. Right? It's very simple. It's you're here, they're there, you're using an implement, whatever that may be, to inflict violence in order to save yourself. Now, are you willing to do that? Because if you can bridge the willing piece, then yeah. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to what's a great movie? What's a great movie?
Die Hard.
Die Hard. Now,
a great
in
Christmas
watching
movie.
Die Hard, what makes Die Hard great? That you're willing to go there.
Right.
Right? Hey man, let's spend a night at Nakatomi.
Right.
Right? So it's like perfect. I'm willing to go there. Then I'm getting on the ride. And once you're invested in that, once you get them invested in what's going on there, then yeah, I think it is easier. Now, what's difficult is the one person's vision of what success is going to be different than the others.
Right.
So that's where it comes to the differentiation in teaching. So how do I cultivate the 20-year soft guy and develop his skill because he's already vested and interested in it, and the stay-at-home single mom?
Right.
How do I get those both to the same? Because the act is the same, right? Is a gunfight in a war zone different than a gunfight for a cop?
Bullets are bullets, man.
Exactly. So then, and this goes back to the industry. So then why do we make a distinction between gunfights for cops and soldiers and gunfights for stay-at-home moms, or gunfights for guys that are like horrible at what they're doing, right? Is what's a shitty pistol? Like
High Point.
Okay.
I was going to say it, but, you know.
So a 9mm High Point.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, good veteran-owned company. I'm sure the guy's squared away, but I'm not a big fan of the platform.
We'll just talk about a low-end pistol.
Yeah, low-end pistol.
Can a low-end pistol put rounds in people and put them on the down?
Sure.
Absolutely. Just as much as a high-end pistol. So what makes a low-end pistol put people on the ground? A willingness of an individual standing there and holding it to keep their front sight on that threat long enough to do it. So then it comes down to the individual, not the gear. And what this industry suffers from daily is the gear will make me better. Right? And you guys say, the SF guys have said it my entire life, man. It's a Green Beret. It's even a shitty hat. Right?
Horrible.
Like it can't keep the rain off your face. Like it's
just horrible.
Like
It's the worst piece of gear ever.
It's funny.
Yeah.
But what does it represent and what you're willing to do?
Yeah.
Everything. Right?
Yeah.
All cards are on the table. All options are at my disposal. Okay. Well, then let's go. It's the Armageddon piece, right? The worst possible thing imaginable. That's all
I'm
you
a
gotta
huge
say.
proponent of that too, where it's just kind of like, you know, it's like cosplay. You can dress like a Viking. It doesn't make you one, you know, just because you put the little leather straps on and the helmet and you got a sword. Okay, let's go to a sword fight, dude. You know, where it's, if you invested the time in yourself and building those skill sets individually, and then okay, now how do I maybe have gear that can help optimize the functionality of the skill sets that I've learned? I'm on that, but I mean, I shoot a stock Glock. That's the one I carry. It's a 43 or 19, and everybody always makes fun of me, like, "Oh, you haven't got this and that on it." I'm like, man, I've put hundreds of thousands of rounds through a stock Glock. I'm not going to relearn my trigger reset to get a nice hair pull trigger. I don't want it because I've already engraved it so much in my brain. That's what I'm used to, and I know under stress, I'm going to go back to what I've done for the last 10 years of my life.
Right. I have my Glock's March of 1986. Pistol, so it
is older than me.
It is, and it is.
Yeah, the things that I like right now, I mean, it's not a question. It's just, you know, throwing it out there. Like, I really like to see scenario-based training being more, I guess, pervasive in the industry. Now, the danger that I see with this is that I ran scenarios my entire adult life, and scenarios can create really bad training scars if they're not executed well by people that understand what they're doing. They will fuck people up, like completely fuck them up. And that's me. Maybe it's me just kind of weighing my own experience in it a little bit too heavy, in the sense of like, if you put somebody in a scenario, they're going to get better, but that's not necessarily what I've seen, I guess, in the course of my life. What do you feel? How do you feel about the use of? How would you classify like a simunition? The use of simunitions in scenario-based training? Because I'm seeing more of it.
Yeah, we do. We do an entire course. We do our Kill House class, which is exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 days. Starts on a flat range with live guns, because if I can get you to manipulate your gun in an efficient manner before taking you into the house, then when you manipulate your gun in an efficient manner in the house, you're going to be more effective. Right. So day 1 is live range. We get you on the same page with how you need to manipulate. Your gun can only be in 3 places, right? It can be muzzle up, muzzle down, and muzzle out.
Right.
And that's it. Those are whether it's in a holster, whether it's slung in a truck, doesn't matter. Those are the only places it can be. So from that, we take you into a house, and we go into a structure, and we go into how do I interact with this structure? What do I look for? How do I mitigate my environment through that? And we use exclusively force-on-force scenarios in there.
Right.
And what we do is a hybrid of micro scenarios. So I don't need a scenario, and this is oftentimes happens. I don't need a scenario to go 12 minutes, right, to have you go through all of this.
Right.
It's much more effective to let a scenario go 30 seconds to a minute and just give you more repetition in that. Mm-hmm. And also what that gives us the ability to do is isolate each segment of what I'm looking for you to learn,
right,
and to validate that you're learning it. So we use it. We rely on it really well. I think it's a phenomenal teaching tool. Mm-hmm. The interesting side of it is you cannot manufacture stress.
Right.
You can't. You can put me on my face right now and I can start doing a bunch of push-ups, but you're not manufacturing stress. You're just getting my physiology, mm-hmm, right, working a little bit more. But that's not going to translate to me thinking I'm going to die the second I go through that door.
Right.
So when you're loading fake bullets, you know you're shooting real people in a training environment. And when you're loading real bullets, you know you're shooting paper. So it's one of those where we can try to make it as realistic as we can, and we can build that to a certain point, but it entirely goes to the content of the information and the way it's presented into what you get out of it. Because like you said, the very worst thing that can happen is for someone that doesn't know what they're doing, because they don't have a depth of knowledge of seeing thousands and thousands of runs.
Right.
They do a scenario. As a teacher, they create a scenario not knowing the depth of the knowledge of what they have to get, and then let it run. And that person think of all of the bridging that is going on in their learning, from what they see to what they hear to where they move to what they feel to how they get their gun in their hand. Like all of those things can be happening poorly, and the person that created that environment doesn't even recognize it. So. Right. So we isolate skills, we isolate all of the fundamentals that we find successful in that environment from the lifetime of working in it and teaching it, and we present them that way.
And how do you see the change in the training environment, as far as like, do you think that it will eventually evolve to more scenario-based training where people are, I guess, siloing these things? Because I mean, we know the difference between an elevated heart rate drill and a scenario, right? So right. You just talked about elevated heart rate drills, which when we talk about like acclimation, and that's like, you know, you've got your flat range drills, you've got your elevated heart rate drills, you've got scenario-based training, all of which kind of induce different elements, and really it's for the student and the instructor, right? So do you see that evolution happening? Do you think that the instructors out there are evolving their training to a great degree, or
the good ones are?
Yeah. Okay.
Like that's what I'll say. Yeah, absolutely. We're pushing the edge on everything we do, and right. the great part about the blessing that I have is that I still have my DoD life.
Yeah.
And so I constantly get to tell myself, who's the guinea pig?
Right.
Is it the Graham Combat class that drives the DoD student or is it the DoD student that the Graham Combat class benefits from? Because if you were to show up in a Graham Combat class, it would be transparent to you. I don't present those classes or information differently than I do my Monday to Friday DoD life. The fight's the fight, right? And the individual there needs the information just as much.
Absolutely.
So it's presented in entirely the same way. And I think a successful program kind of threads all of them together because you got to have them all. So do some flat range, do some stress inoculation, do some force on force, do some live runs in a live house, and kind of find where your balance is in that. And that's what we do is as that guided discovery learning piece. I'm just there to show you, hey man, this is where you're at. This is the validation of what you believed and what you're performing. So if you're not performing it, right, it's not on me. What I basically say is, Evan, when you're standing there, like, prove me wrong. Like, here's the technique.
Right.
Go for it. Prove me wrong. Like, show me if you have something better. And this happens all the time. We've all lived this life. A guy will stand there and say, yeah, man, that's not how we did it I got a better way. Then
Delta
do
NASA.
it.
Right, then do it, yeah.
Right.
Then show me. Then right here, right now, prove it.
Right.
And most times it's like, well, like
I
grab
didn't
my
bring
wrist.
my
I mean my
spurs.
other wrist.
I didn't bring my spurs and my horses in the shop.
It's a hey man, this is none of those
Right.
things. Yeah.
And
that goes to the fight. And that's what I think differentiates us. What I always say is fight with what you carry.
Right.
So if you don't carry a chest rig full of 8 magazines, right, and strobes,
You're preaching to the choir.
Because
That's
then-
one of my biggest frustrations in the whole tactical industry.
then take a pistol, put it in your jeans, put a mag in your back pocket, put a light in your hand, and go to fucking war. Let's go, right? But if that's what you carry, then that's what you train with.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then what are you trying to prove? Like, I would rather spend time developing my fighting skills with that lamp, because guess what? Right now, that has the mass. Yeah, according to science, that has the mass, and I have the velocity to make that.
It's super funny you say that. I don't know if you ever watched a video I did years ago. It's called How to Be Tactical, and one of the inserts in that sketch was the instructor had like 3 guys all in full kit, long guns, and they're like, wait, I carry a Glock. Why do I have full kit in an AR? You know, it's like, it's bizarre to me that people, and I get like the entertainment component of it, right? It's super fun to put on kit, run around and play Army if you've never done it, like totally get it. But if you're going there as a life-saving course to develop your personal skill sets, like I don't understand why people are out there with an AR. That's why I shoot so much pistol, because the only time I will be shooting an AR to save my life at this point will be my bedside AR. The only time ever. And I think I have enough skills to do that. So it's like I carry a pistol everywhere I go. So I better be very competent in my presentation of that pistol. And, you know.
We do a good drill of just random pistols.
Yeah.
Right? When you have 15 students in a class, okay, get your gun on the deck, and there you go. Like, there's the pistols, because what makes you think the pistol you're going to use is yours?
Right.
It may be the guy standing in the lobby. Okay, I'm going to pick that pistol up and I'm going to go to work. And that goes back to the mindset piece. If I've not chosen already that when I step out through the threshold, I'm in the fight, right? Because that's the reality of it. If you carry a pistol and it's in your holster, you're already in a gunfight. If you're a concealed carry person, I'm not a law enforcement guy, right? I don't have credentials anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy. So if I'm carrying my pistol, I'm already in a gunfight. I haven't drawn it yet. And that's the distinction that people don't make. They're like, oh, no, I'm not in a fight. Like, later on when I get my gun out, I'll be in the fight. Well, if you get your gun out.
Yeah.
Right.
The realization.
Asterisks on the if.
Absolutely. The realization is when you place that gun or knife or lamp on your body to go to work, you're going to work.
Right.
Right? So
Who else are you looking at in the industry? Like, you know, guys that you respect, you know? I mean, you're not looking at, not as in that way, but who do you respect in the industry?
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It really is, and we get this question a lot. I get guys come up and say, "Hey, man, I want to go train with somebody. Who do you recommend?" And my first answer is, "Come back.
Yeah.
Come on back." There are people out there. I don't want to recommend somebody that I haven't been to.
Yeah.
And so for me, having the life I've had for the last 12 years, it's been limited within the DoD world. It's difficult to say, hey, you should go to this next person. I spend a lot of time down at Shaw's.
Right.
I teach down at Mid-South now as well.
The one in the South or the one in Idaho? Because there's
the Homestead.
Okay, got it.
The one in, but again, it's difficult for people to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They kind of got to enlist, and they got to go through a bunch of training.
Right.
Then they got to get.
Yeah. You got to register and type an email or something.
Selection, gotta come back and. So it's hard for me. Typically, what I say is I believe more than anybody that the information I'm putting out is the best information you can get.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. And in my training life at DoD, I talk about this a lot because we get guys, and you've both know that life that I'm talking about, where people will see a new shiny object and they want to go off and follow the new shiny object. And one of the things that I commonly say is about Shaw's. Why is Mid-South the finest shooting school in the world? So I ask you, you've been there. Why is it the finest shooting school in the world? And my answer to you, right? It's not a setup question.
Oh, okay.
But my answer to you is because they believe they are. And as one of the guys that has to stand in front of tiered level individuals and teach them how to shoot a pistol, I believe I am. So that's the difference. Is there are a lot of people out there that don't fully believe in themselves, but it doesn't keep them from going out and trying to teach someone else.
Right.
So I've, in my professional life and what Ellen and I do with our business, just like you guys, we surround ourselves with successful people. I want people better than me around me, right? And so I'm fairly confident in saying, come to me. I'll train. Right. We had a student that every major instructor in the country had turned him away because he had a physical disability.
Oh, really?
Couldn't find He's like, hey man, I gotta save my family like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah man, come on out. Like I'm super fucked up. So let's do it. Right? Like, I mean,
me too, but that's all in my head.
No,
so,
but that's a huge thing, right? Like that's the.
I taught a guy a few years ago in a wheelchair, and it was one of the most rewarding things that I had done because he'd been paralyzed basically from the center, from his nipple line down, and so his body mass was very difficult for him to maintain the gun behind his body mass. So we worked with him for quite a while, but it was one of those things where he came out. He's like, I'm very appreciative in the fact that it's like, I'm immobile. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm mobile, but I'm mobile by wheels. And he found himself feeling very vulnerable most of the time. And it was a confidence issue. It was a big piece of psychology, fairly important piece of psychology for him to have the confidence to at least know that he's out with his family, that he wasn't going to be exploited. And that was a big deal for him. And it was actually a really big deal for me because it was one of the most rewarding teaching experiences that I had, because it really gave this guy something, and you could tell it meant a lot. Like, it just meant a lot.
It's his life.
Yes.
Right? And that's one of the things that we commonly forget is like when we recognize it in ourselves of like, hey, I'm working on this craft for life. In some of the products that we're developing and putting out, I was having a conversation the other day with our attorney, who happens to be a really good friend of ours. And I reiterated to him, like, hey, man, I've got 8 mouths to feed. Right? This isn't abstract to me.
Right.
This is direct. And he's like, 8? And I'm like, yeah. I've got 4 kids and a wife, right? I've got a business partner who has a family. I've got, this isn't just me. Like, this is so for that guy, it's one of those things where one of the things that we talk about a lot in our classes is how to be a student, because people don't know how to learn.
Right.
they show up and they have preconceived ideas of, I'm going to put on all this gear and I'm going to go do all this stuff. And it's like, hey, this is how you be a good student. And then not only a good student for how you learn, but a good student for the person next to you.
Yeah.
Because, hey, man, like, you have no idea where they came from. You don't know what their baggage is or their burden or what they're trying to, get over, what their fight is, and how that can translate to their own success, right? Like just, you're here, you're part of a big class, but you're also an individual and you're working on your own thing. So, it's kind of that throwing stones in a glass house piece. Like, hey, man, I do this a lot, been around a bit, and I'm still here to be a student. So, maybe we can all learn something.
Well, we are out of time, Matt. Appreciate you stopping by. Tell us once again where we can find you.
GrahamCombat.com. It's on the interwebs.
I'm going to have to come down sometimes for a course.
Yeah.
It's a great course, everybody. Like, I think that I can't emphasize enough, like, just don't be afraid to register for courses. Go out and take them. There's a wide variety. And I'll of course, Matt's here, but I mean, Kyle Lamb is a really good friend of ours. He's fucking
phenomenal,
like an amazing instructor. Yep. Mike Pannone is one of the fucking best instructors out there. There's like Frank Proctor, Daryl Holland. Like these guys are phenomenal, man. And if you just start pulling the thread on the sweater, the thing's going to come apart really fast. In the sense of the information is there, and there's only literally there's probably 20 instructors in the nation that we could list in the way that's like. They're highly reputable. They're great. They're great courses. You can get into one of them pretty much. I would imagine any week, any week you're looking for one, and it's just never. It should never be an option for you to stop learning or create the obstacle in front of yourself or the excuse not to do it. And we'll just look forward to checking in with you next year, Matt, because we'll make it just a yearly thing.
Yeah, come on out and shoot the new sites.
Fuck yeah. I would love to. Love to.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks for having me.